Right. Okay, welcome everybody to this session 9 of online Srimad Bhagavad Gita Parayan and Satsang of 2022. We have started this couple of years ago after the COVID outbreak, and now it's going very strong. So with many participants and a lot of interest and a lot of new stuff inside. Without much ado, we'll get started. And today, our guest of honor for today is Mr. K.V. Rao, who is the chairman of Sri Aurobindo Society Singapore, as well as CFAS. And we have Brinda Karanamji as the speaker for today, who will speak on the chapter 8. So we are very blessed to have both these very distinguished personalities as our main speakers, as well as guest of honor for today. So without much ado, we'll get started, and let us get started with the invocation. Invocation will be done by Sunilji.
Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavathitamastu ma vidyushavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shuklam Baradharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chadurbhujam Prasanna Vadanam Dhyaye Sarva Vikhnopashantaye. Saraswati Namastubhyam Varate Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sata Sarva Mangalamakalye Shive Sarvartha Sathike Sharani Trambake Gauri Narayani Namostute. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Bante Jagat Gurum.
Thank you, Sunilji. And now I will. It's time for the welcome address by the guest of honor for today is Mr. K.V. Rao. As I said earlier, he is the chairman of Sri Aurobindo Society Singapore, as well as CFAS Singapore, and we are very happy to have him. He's a very wonderful speaker also, who throws the ideas of Sri Aurobindo into his speeches, which actually adds a lot of new dimensions to the understanding of the Bhagavad Gita itself. So thank you so much for participating, for coming, and now over to Rao Sahab.
Thank you, Mr. Krishna Kumar and other dignitaries attending today, and the organizers of the Gita Jayanti. It's always a pleasure to be amongst people on the path, as it is said. We are like co-workers on a journey. And one fact is that nobody really knows the entire route or the goal, but we all walk together to help each other to find the light and the bliss. I'm particularly touched that you have given this opportunity to me to speak. And as we do Parayan, Parayan is not only an externalization of the Gita. The Parayan is more an internalization of going within ourselves through the powerful slokas and the words of Lord Sri Krishna in a way to discover ourselves and bring change, bring peace, bring contentment, bring equanimity in a world which has never been more driven by strife, by challenge, by difficulty, and uncertainty that nobody knows. I don't think in one's lifetime, many of us who have been, let's say, for 4 decades, 5 decades, or 6 decades, depending on your age, have seen such difficult times. We do not know how long the wars will last. We do not know how long this pandemic will last. We do not know how many lives will be lost. We do not know what happens to the economy. We also do not know what happens to our careers, our jobs, our wealth, our health. So these are very difficult times that the world is going together, and difficult times often are also the times when we reflect and at times for major transformation of things outside and things within. And why I'm saying this is this particular year, 2022, is also a very momentous year. And since you mentioned about Sri Aurobindo, a great seer, a great saint, a great scholar, a poet, unparalleled in his knowledge, understanding, and interpretation of the Indian scriptures, led a life of a freedom fighter. And this August 15th, 2022, will be his 150th birth anniversary. So it's a very important day. In India, the Prime Minister has formed a group to conduct various conferences and activities to remember his works and his contributions. I would just like to relate one particular aspect of his life. He was, as many of you would know, a great freedom fighter. And the British were very, very scared and troubled by him because he was so powerful in what he said and wrote. They jailed him. And when they jailed him, he was in, it was called the Alipur bomb case, and he was jailed. And when he came out of the jail, he was a transformed person. What was that transformation that took place in the jail is one of the most seminal part of Sri Aurobindo's life and works. As he goes into the cell, he experiences Sri Krishna welcoming him and embracing him. And his entire period in the cell that he spent, everything around him was none other than Sri Krishna and Sri Krishna's consciousness. Even the walls which were wet seemed like the arms, he speaks later. And the rough clothing that was left felt to him, it was like the velvetish clothing Sri Krishna provided. So his whole experience of that living with Sri Krishna and Sri Krishna being everything, including when he goes for the judgment, he sees Sri Krishna in the eyes of the judge. He sees Chittaranjan Das and says, he speaks for him. And he was so silent, he was in a meditative mode. I would just like to remind you, because it is Sri Aurobindo's 150th anniversary, I would just read a couple of his lines, because there's nothing that we can use our words when such great saints have written. This is part of a speech which he gave, which I would recommend you all read. It is available on the net also. It is called the Uttarpara speech. So when he comes out, he comes and speaks in Uttarpara. And people who have attended had written later, when he spoke, it appeared it was Sri Krishna speaking through him. He was not at all in a preparative mode. The words came out of him. And this is what I would like to read, just 2 parts, just repeat his words, as this would be a very good memory when we do our Parayan. He says, in the jail, he placed the Gita in my hand. And he says it's Sri Krishna who placed the Gita in his hand. And his strength entered into me, and I was able to do the sadhana of the Gita. Not only understand intellectually, but to realize what Sri Krishna demands of those who aspire to do his work. To be free from repulsion and desire, to do work for him without demand of fruit, to renounce self-will and become a passive and faithful instrument in his hands, to have equal heart for high and low, friend and opponent, success and failure, yet not do his work negligently. I realized what Hindu religion meant, the Sanatana Dharma of which we talk, but few know what it is. Other religions are religions of faith and profession. But Sanatana Dharma is not belief. It is to be lived. It is life itself. It is for the salvation of humanity, and it is to give this ideal that India is rising. And then he talks about himself in such humble words. And you see the master speaking here. I knew that I, the man, was a mass of weaknesses, prey to my own faults, strong only when a higher strength entered into me. I found myself among those of mighty courage, power of self-effacement, a few who were my superior in character and intellectual ability, on which I prided myself. And he told me, Sri Krishna told him then, this is the young generation, the mighty nation is rising. Who will take up your work? You have to step aside. You have only got some strength from me to speak a word to this nation, which I will help to raise it. With that, I stop. This is where he got the message from Sri Krishna that really moved him away from active freedom struggle, because he gets that assurance from Sri Krishna himself that the youth of the country at that particular time will take, and your word is good enough. And then he retreats into his own sadhana and goes to Sri Aurobindo ashram later. That's another part of the story. So coming back, I'm so delighted that in Singapore, we are continuing this tradition of Gita Jayanti, which is a journey, nothing but of self-realization. And the Parayana is a format, a route, a way, a pathway to get much closer to oneself, which will give us that peace, that harmony, and that joy in a world which is troubled more than ever before. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rao Saab, for your wonderful speech, wonderful welcome address, and throwing so much light into the one of the greatest years of modern India, Sri Aurobindo. And I've read that he has said that there are 4 great events in history: the siege of Troy, and the I think the crucifixion of Christ, and I think Krishna's leaving Vrindavan, as well as the Bhagavad Gita, the Gita Upadesha itself as great events, right? So I mean, his perspective itself is so focused or moving around the Gita and the Krishna himself, the ideas of Krishna. So beautifully put, Rao Saab. So thank you so much. So those wonderful words. And this year onwards, we have actually had, last year we had added the idea of having a speech on the particular topic we are chanting, so that, we don't just chant, and we also try to understand what is being chanted. And we also have introduced a quiz segment, which also investigates deeply into what the topics of the chanted portions for the day. So basically, the idea is to go more into Swadhyaya and not just a ritualistic chanting. So that is has been our effort for past this year. So thank you again, Rao Sahab. So I think we will get back into our normal cycle again. So we first do a invocation, Gita Dhyanam, followed by the actual Parayan. So now I will actually disable unmuting by people, so that there will be no disturbance. And I think I'll just make Srinivasan as co-host. Yeah, okay. So let me just share the screen again. So thank you so much again, once again, Rao Sahab. And now we get into our actual Gita Dhyanam itself. This will be the invocation of the Bhagavad Gita, and will be done by Padmaniji.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Atha Srimad Bhagavad Gita Dhyanam. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grathitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshini Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayini Ambatvam Anusandadhami Bhagavad Gite Bhavatveshini Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullara Vindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajwalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraika Panaye Jnana Mudraya Krishnaya Gita Duhe Namaha Sarvopanishado Gavo Dogdha Gopala Nandanaha Partho Vatsasudhir Bhokta Dugdham Gitamritam Mahat Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Bhishmadrona Tata Jayadratha Jala Gandhara Nilotpala Shalyagrahavati Kripena Vahani Karnena Velakula Ashwathama Vikarna Ghora Makara Duryodhana Vartini Sotirna Khalu Pandavai Rananadi Kaivartaka Keshavaha Parasharya Vachas Saroja Mamalam Gitartha Gandhotkatam Nanakyanaka Kesaram Harikatha Sambodhana Bodhitam Loke Sajjana Shatpadairaharaha Pepiyamanam Muda Bhuyat Bharata Pankajam Kalimala Pradvamsina Shreyase Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yatkripa Tamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunmanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangha Padakramo Panishadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavastita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginah Yasyandam Navidusura Suraganaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha.
Thank you so much, Padmaniji, for that beautiful chanting of the Gita Dhyanam, as is a formal invocation of the Bhagavad Gita itself. And now we get into the actual Parayan for session, Parayans for today. And this today's portion is actually the rest of chapter 8, starting from 11, verse number 11 to 28, and chapter 9, 1 to 22. Very many people say that this verse 22 is the middle part of the Bhagavad Gita and sort of something like a peak of the Bhagavad Gita. So today we will come and stop there, and so that is the portions for today. And the chanting will be done by Sunilji as well as Lataji from the beginning. Over to Sunilji and Lataji, please.
यदक्षरं वेदविदो वदन्ति
यदक्षरं वेदविदो वदन्ति
विशन्ति यद्यतयो वीतरागाः
विशन्ति यद्यतयो वीतरागाः
यदिच्छन्दो ब्रह्मचर्यं चरन्ति
यदिच्छन्तो ब्रह्मचर्यं चरन्ति
तत्ते पदं संग्रहेण प्रवक्ष्ये
तत्ते पदं संग्रहेण प्रवक्ष्ये
यदक्षरं वेदविदो वदन्ति विशन्ति यद्यतयो वीतरागाः यदिच्छन्दो ब्रह्मचर्यं चरन्ति तत्ते पदं संग्रहेण प्रवक्ष्ये
यदक्षरं वेदविदो वदन्ति विशन्ति यद्यतयो वीतरागाः यदिच्छन्तो ब्रह्मचर्यं चरन्ति तत्ते पदं संग्रहेण प्रवक्ष्ये
सर्वद्वाराणि संयम्य
सर्वद्वाराणि संयम्य
मनोहृदि निरुध्य च
मनोहृदि निरुध्य च
मूर्ध्याधायात्मनः प्राणम्
मूढ्याध्यायात्मनः प्राणम्
आस्थितो योगधारणम्
आस्थितो योगधारणाम्
सर्वद्वाराणि संयम्य मनोहृदि निरुध्य च मूर्ध्याधायात्मनः प्राणम् आस्थितो योगधारणाम्
सर्वद्वाराणि संयम्य मनोहृदि निरुध्य च मूर्ध्याधायात्मनः प्राणम् आस्थितो योगधारणाम्
ओमित्येकाक्षरं ब्रह्म
ओमित्येकाक्षरं ब्रह्म
व्याहरन् मामनुस्मरन्
व्याहरन् मामनुस्मरन्
यः प्रयाति त्यजन् देहम्
यः प्रयाति त्यजन् देहम्
स याति परमां गतिम्
स याति परमां गतिम्
ओमित्येकाक्षरं ब्रह्म व्याहरन् मामनुस्मरन् यः प्रयाति त्यजन् देहम् स याति परमां गतिम्
ओमित्येकाक्षरं ब्रह्म व्याहरन् मामनुस्मरन् यः प्रयाति त्यजन् देहम् स याति परमां गतिम्
अनन्यचेता सततम्
अनन्यचेता सततम्
यो मां स्मरति नित्यशः
यो मां स्मरति नित्यशः
तस्याहं सुलभः पार्थ
तस्याहं सुलभः पार्थ
नित्ययुक्तस्य योगिनः
नित्ययुक्तस्य योगिनः
अनन्यचेता सततम् यो मां स्मरति नित्यशः तस्याहं सुलभः पार्थ नित्ययुक्तस्य योगिनः
अनन्यचेता सततम् यो मां स्मरति नित्यशः तस्याहं सुलभः पार्थ नित्ययुक्तस्य योगिनः
मामुपेत्य पुनर्जन्म
मामुपेत्य पुनर्जन्म
दुःखालयमशाश्वतम्
दुःखालयमशाश्वतम्
नाप्नुवन्ति महात्मानः
नाप्नुवन्ति महात्मानः
संसिद्धिं परमां गताः
संसिद्धिं परमां गताः
मामुपेत्य पुनर्जन्म दुःखालयमशाश्वतम् नाप्नुवन्ति महात्मानः संसिद्धिं परमां गताः
मामुपेत्य पुनर्जन्म दुःखालयमशाश्वतम् नाप्नुवन्ति महात्मानः संसिद्धिं परमां गताः
आब्रह्मभुवनान् लोकाः
आब्रह्मभुवनान् लोकाः
पुनरावर्तिनोऽर्जुन
पुनरावर्तिनोऽर्जुन
मामुपेत्य तु कौन्तेय
मामुपेत्य तु कौन्तेय
पुनर्जन्म न विद्यते
पुनर्जन्म न विद्यते
आब्रह्मभुवनान् लोकाः पुनरावर्तिनोऽर्जुन मामुपेत्य तु कौन्तेय पुनर्जन्म न विद्यते
आब्रह्मभुवनान् लोकाः पुनरावर्तिनोऽर्जुन मामुपेत्य तु कौन्तेय पुनर्जन्म न विद्यते
सहस्रयुगपर्यन्तम्
सहस्रयुगपर्यन्तम्
अहर्यद्ब्रह्मणो विदुः
आहर्यद्ब्रह्मणो विदुः
रात्रिं युगसहस्रान्ताम्
रात्रिं युगसहस्रान्ताम्
ते होरात्रविदो जनाः
ते होरात्रविदो जनाः
सहस्रयुगपर्यन्तम् अहर्यद्ब्रह्मणो विदुः रात्रिं युगसहस्रान्ताम् ते होरात्रविदो जनाः
सहस्रयुगपर्यन्तम् आहर्यद्ब्रह्मणो विदुः रात्रिं युगसहस्रान्ताम् ते होरात्रविदो जनाः
अव्यक्ताद्व्यक्तयः सर्वाः
अव्यक्ताद्व्यक्तयः सर्वाः
प्रभवन्त्यहरागमे
प्रभवन्त्यहरागमे
रात्र्यागमे प्रलीयन्ते
रात्र्यागमे प्रलीयन्ते
तत्रैवाव्यक्तसंज्ञके
तत्रैवाव्यक्तसंज्ञके
अव्यक्ताद्व्यक्तयः सर्वाः प्रभवन्त्यहरागमे रात्र्यागमे प्रलीयन्ते तत्रैवाव्यक्तसंज्ञके
अव्यक्ताद्व्यक्तयः सर्वाः प्रभवन्त्यहरागमे रात्र्यागमे प्रलीयन्ते तत्रैवाव्यक्तसंज्ञके भूतग्रामस एवायम्
भूतग्रामस्य एवायम्
भूत्वा भूत्वा प्रलीयते
भूत्वा भूत्वा प्रलीयते
रात्र्यागमे वशः पार्थ
रात्र्यागमे वशः पार्थ
प्रभवत्यहरागमे
प्रभवत्यहरागमे
ग्राम स एवायं भूत्वा भूत्वा प्रलीयते रात्र्यागमे वशः पार्थ प्रभवत्यहरागमे
भूतग्रामस्य एवायं भूत्वा भूत्वा प्रलीयते रात्र्यागमे वशः पार्थ प्रभवत्यहरागमे
परस्तस्मात्तु भावोऽन्यो व्यक्तो व्यक्तात् सनातनः
परस्तस्मात्तु भावोऽन्यो व्यक्तो व्यक्तात् सनातनः
यस्य सर्वेषु भूतेषु
यस्य सर्वेषु भूतेषु
नश्यत्सु न विनश्यति
नश्यत्सु न विनश्यति
परस्तस्मात्तु भावोऽन्यो व्यक्तो व्यक्तात् सनातनः यस्य सर्वेषु भूतेषु नश्यत्सु न विनश्यति
परस्तस्मात्तु भावोऽन्यो व्यक्तो व्यक्तात् सनातनः यस्य सर्वेषु भूतेषु नश्यत्सु न विनश्यति
अव्यक्तोऽक्षर इत्युक्तः
अव्यक्तोऽक्षर इत्युक्तः
तमाहुः परमां गतिम्
तमाहुः परमां गतिम्
यं प्राप्य न निवर्तन्ते
यं प्राप्य न निवर्तन्ते
तद्धाम परमं मम
तद्धाम परमं मम
अव्यक्तोऽक्षर इत्युक्तः तमाहुः परमां गतिम् यं प्राप्य न निवर्तन्ते तद्धाम परमं मम
अव्यक्तोऽक्षर इत्युक्तः तमाहुः परमां गतिम् यं प्राप्य न निवर्तन्ते तद्धाम परमं मम
पुरुषः स परः पार्थ
पुरुषः स परः पार्थ
भक्त्या लभ्यस्त्वनन्यया
भक्त्या लभ्यस्त्वनन्यया
यस्यान्तस्थानि भूतानि
यस्यान्तस्थानि भूतानि
येन सर्वमिदं ततम्
येन सर्वमिदं ततम्
पुरुषः स परः पार्थ भक्त्या लभ्यस्त्वनन्यया यस्यान्तस्थानि भूतानि येन सर्वमिदं ततम्
पुरुषः स परः पार्थ भक्त्या लभ्यस्त्वनन्यया यस्यान्तस्थानि भूतानि येन सर्वमिदं ततम्
यत्र काले त्वनावृत्तिम्
यत्र काले त्वनावृत्तिम्
आवृत्तिं चैव योगिनः
आवृत्तिं चैव योगिनः
प्रयाता यान्ति तं कालम्
प्रयाता यान्ति तं कालम्
वक्ष्यामि भरतर्षभ
वक्ष्यामि भरतर्षभ
यत्र काले त्वनावृत्तिम् आवृत्तिं चैव योगिनः प्रयाता यान्ति तं कालं वक्ष्यामि भरतर्षभ।
यत्र काले त्वनावृत्तिम् आवृत्तिं चैव योगिनः प्रयाता यान्ति तं कालं वक्ष्यामि भरतर्षभ।
अग्निर्ज्योतिरः शुक्लः
अग्निर्ज्योतिरः शुक्लः
षण्मासा उत्तरायणम्
षण्मासा उत्तरायणम्
तत्र प्रयाता गच्छन्ति
तत्र प्रयाता गच्छन्ति
ब्रह्म ब्रह्मविदो जनाः
ब्रह्म ब्रह्मविदो जनाः।
अग्निर्ज्योतिरः शुक्लः षण्मासा उत्तरायणम् तत्र प्रयाता गच्छन्ति ब्रह्म ब्रह्मविदो जनाः।
अग्निर्ज्योतिरः शुक्लः षण्मासा उत्तरायणम् तत्र प्रयाता गच्छन्ति ब्रह्म ब्रह्मविदो जनाः।
धूमो रात्रिस्तथा कृष्णः
धूमो रात्रिस्तथा कृष्णः
षण्मासा दक्षिणायनम्
षण्मासा दक्षिणायनम्
तत्र चान्द्रमसञ्ज्योतिः
तत्र चान्द्रमसञ्ज्योतिः
योगी प्राप्य निवर्तते
योगी प्राप्य निवर्तते।
धूमो रात्रिस्तथा कृष्णः षण्मासा दक्षिणायनम् तत्र चान्द्रमसञ्ज्योतिः योगी प्राप्य निवर्तते।
धूमो रात्रिस्तथा कृष्णः षण्मासा दक्षिणायनम् तत्र चान्द्रमसञ्ज्योतिः योगी प्राप्य निवर्तते।
शुक्लकृष्णे गतिहेते
शुक्लकृष्णे गतिह्येते
जगतः शाश्वते मते
जगतः शाश्वते मते।
एकया यात्यनावृत्तिम्
एकया यात्यनावृत्तिम्
अन्यया वर्तते पुनः
अन्यया वर्तते पुनः।
शुक्लकृष्णे गतिहेते जगतः शाश्वते मते एकया यात्यनावृत्तिम् अन्यया वर्तते पुनः।
शुक्लकृष्णे गतिह्येते जगतः शाश्वते मते एकया यात्यनावृत्तिम् अन्यया वर्तते पुनः। नैते श्रुति पार्थ जानन्
नैते श्रुति पार्थ जानन्
योगी मुह्यति कश्चन
योगी मुह्यति कश्चन
तस्मात् सर्वेषु कालेषु
तस्मात् सर्वेषु कालेषु
योगयुक्तो भवार्जुन
योगयुक्तो भवार्जुन
नैते सृति पार्थ जानन् योगी मुह्यति कश्चन तस्मात् सर्वेषु कालेषु योगयुक्तो भवार्जुन
नैते श्रुति पार्थ जानन् योगी मुह्यति कश्चन तस्मात् सर्वेषु कालेषु योगयुक्तो भवार्जुन
वेदेषु यज्ञेषु तपस्सु चैव
वेदेषु यज्ञेषु तपस्सु चैव
दानेषु यत् पुण्यफलं प्रदिष्टम्
दानेषु यत् पुण्यफलं प्रदिष्टम्
अत्येति तत्सर्वमिदं विदित्वा
अत्येति तत्सर्वमिदं विदित्वा
योगी परं स्थानमुपैति चाद्यम्
योगी परं स्थानमुपैति चाद्यम्
वेदेषु यज्ञेषु तपस्सु चैव दानेषु यत् पुण्यफलं प्रदिष्टम् अत्येति तत्सर्वमिदं विदित्वा योगी परं स्थानमुपैति चाद्यम्
वेदेषु यज्ञेषु तपस्सु चैव दानेषु यत् पुण्यफलं प्रदिष्टम् अत्येति तत्सर्वमिदं विदित्वा योगी परं स्थानमुपैति चाद्यम्
ॐ तत्सत् इति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुन संवादे अक्षरब्रह्मयोगो नाम अष्टमोऽध्यायः अथ नवमोऽध्यायः राजविद्या राजगुह्ययोगः श्रीभगवानुवाच
श्रीभगवानुवाच
इदं तु ते गुह्यतमम्
प्रवक्ष्याम्यनसूयवे
ज्ञानं विज्ञानसहितम् यज्ञात्वा मोक्ष्यसे शुभात् श्रीभगवानुवाच इदं तु ते गुह्यतमं प्रवक्ष्याम्यनसूयवे ज्ञानं विज्ञानसहितं यज्ञात्वा मोक्ष्यसे शुभात्
श्रीभगवानुवाच इदं तु ते गुह्यतमं प्रवक्ष्याम्यनसूयवे ज्ञानं विज्ञानसहितं यज्ञात्वा मोक्ष्यसे शुभात्
राजविद्या राजगुह्यम्
राजविद्या राजगुह्यम्
पवित्रमिदमुत्तमम्
पवित्रमिदमुत्तमम्
प्रत्यक्षावगमन् धर्म्यम्
प्रत्यक्षावगमन् धर्म्यम्
सुसुखं कर्तुमव्ययम्
सुसुखं कर्तुमव्ययम्
राजविद्या राजगुह्यम् पवित्रमिदमुत्तमम् प्रत्यक्षावगमन् धर्म्यम् सुसुखं कर्तुमव्ययम्
राजविद्या राजगुह्यम् पवित्रमिदमुत्तमम् प्रत्यक्षावगमन् धर्म्यम् सुसुखं कर्तुमव्ययम्
अश्रद्दधानाः पुरुषाः
अश्रद्दधानाः पुरुषाः
धर्मस्यास्य परन्तप
धर्मस्यास्य परन्तप
अप्राप्यमान् निवर्तन्ते
अप्राप्यमान् निवर्तन्ते
मृत्युसंसारवर्त्मनि
मृत्युसंसारवर्त्मनि
अश्रद्दधानाः पुरुषाः धर्मस्यास्य परन्तप अप्राप्यमान् निवर्तन्ते मृत्युसंसारवर्त्मनि
अश्रद्दधानाः पुरुषाः धर्मस्यास्य परन्तप अप्राप्यमान् निवर्तन्ते मृत्युसंसारवर्त्मनि
मया ततमिदं सर्वम्
मया तदमिदं सर्वम्
जगदव्यक्तमूर्तिना
जगदव्यक्तमूर्तिना
मत्स्थानि सर्वभूतानि
मत्स्थानि सर्वभूतानि
न चाहन्तेष्वस्थितः
न चाहन्तेष्वस्थितः
मया ततमिदं सर्वं जगदव्यक्तमूर्तिना मत्स्थानि सर्वभूतानि न चाहन्तेष्वस्थितः
मया तदमिदं सर्वं जगदव्यक्तमूर्तिना मत्स्थानि सर्वभूतानि न चाहन्तेष्वस्थितः
न च मत्स्थानि भूतानि
न च मत्स्थानि भूतानि
पश्य मे योगमैश्वरम्
पश्य मे योगमैश्वरम्
भूतभृन्न च भूतस्थः
भूतभृन्न च भूतस्थः
ममात्मा भूतभावनः
ममात्मा भूतभावनः
न च मत्स्थानि भूतानि पश्य मे योगमैश्वरम् भूतभृन्न च भूतस्थः ममात्मा भूतभावनः
न च मत्स्थानि भूतानि पश्य मे योगमैश्वरम् भूतभृन्न च भूतस्थः ममात्मा भूतभावनः
यथाकाशस्थितो नित्यम्
यथाकाशस्थितो नित्यम्
वायुः सर्वत्र गोमहान्
वायुः सर्वत्र गोमहान्
तथा सर्वाणि भूतानि
तथा सर्वाणि भूतानि
मत्स्थानीत्युपधारय
मत्स्थानीत्युपधारय
यथाकाशस्थितो नित्यम् वायुः सर्वत्र गोमहान् तथा सर्वाणि भूतानि मत्स्थानीत्युपधारय
यथाकाशस्थितो नित्यं वायुः सर्वत्र गोमहान् तथा सर्वाणि भूतानि मत्स्थानीत्युपधारय सर्वभूतानि कौन्तेय
सर्वभूतानि कौन्तेय
प्रकृतिं यान्ति मामिकाम्
प्रकृतिं यान्ति मामिकाम्
कल्पक्षये पुनस्तानि
कल्पक्षये पुनस्तानि
कल्पादौ विसृजाम्यहम्
कल्पादौ विसृजाम्यहम्
सर्वभूतानि कौन्तेय प्रकृतिं यान्ति मामिकाम् कल्पक्षये पुनस्तानि कल्पादौ विसृजाम्यहम्
सर्वभूतानि कौन्तेय प्रकृतिं यान्ति मामिकाम् कल्पक्षये पुनस्तानि कल्पादौ विसृजाम्यहम्
प्रकृतिं स्वामवष्टभ्य
प्रकृतिं स्वामवष्टभ्य
विसृजामि पुनः पुनः
विसृजामि पुनः पुनः
भूतग्राममिमं कृत्स्नम्
भूतग्राममिमं कृत्स्नम्
अवशं प्रकृतेर्वशात्
अवशं प्रकृतेर्वशात्
प्रकृतिं स्वामवष्टभ्य विसृजामि पुनः पुनः भूतग्राममिमं कृत्स्नम् अवशं प्रकृतेर्वशात्
प्रकृतिं स्वामवष्टभ्य विसृजामि पुनः पुनः भूतग्राममिमं कृत्स्नम् अवशं प्रकृतेर्वशात्
न च मान्तानि कर्माणि
न च मान्तानि कर्माणि
निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय
निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय
उदासीनवदासीनम्
उदासीनवदासीनम्
असक्तं तेषु कर्मसु
असक्तं तेषु कर्मसु
न च मान्तानि कर्माणि निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय उदासीनवदासीनम् असक्तं तेषु कर्मसु
न च मान्तानि कर्माणि निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय उदासीनवदासीनम् असक्तं तेषु कर्मसु
मयाध्यक्षेण प्रकृतिः
मयाध्यक्षेण प्रकृतिः
सूयते सचराचरम्
ऊयते सचराचरम्
हेतुनानेन कौन्तेय
हेतुनानेन कौन्तेय
जगद्विपरिवर्तते
जगद्विपरिवर्तते
मयाध्यक्षेण प्रकृतिः सूयते सचराचरम् हेतुनानेन कौन्तेय जगद्विपरिवर्तते
मयाध्यक्षेण प्रकृतिः सूयते सचराचरम् हेतुनानेन कौन्तेय जगद्विपरिवर्तते
अवजानन्ति मां मूढाः
अवजानन्ति मां मूढाः
मानुषीं तनुमाश्रितम्
मानुषीं तनुमाश्रितम्
परं भावमजानन्तः
परं भावमजानन्तः
मम भूतमहेश्वरम्
मम भूतमहेश्वरम्
अवजानन्ति मां मूढाः मानुषीं तनुमाश्रितं परं भावमजानन्तः मम भूतमहेश्वरम्
अवजानन्ति मां मूढाः मानुषीं तनुमाश्रितं परं भावमजानन्तः मम भूतमहेश्वरम्
मोघाशामोघकर्माणः
मोघाशामोघकर्माणः
मोघज्ञानाविचेतसः
मोघज्ञानाविचेतसः
राक्षसीमासुरीं चैव
राक्षसीमासुरीं चैव
प्रकृतिं मोहिनीं श्रिताः
प्रकृतिं मोहिनीं श्रिताः
मोघाशामोघकर्माणः मोघज्ञानाविचेतसः राक्षसीमासुरीं चैव प्रकृतिं मोहिनीं श्रिताः
मोघाशामोघकर्माणः मोघज्ञानाविचेतसः राक्षसीमासुरीं चैव प्रकृतिं मोहिनीं श्रिताः
महात्मानस्तु मां पार्थ
महात्मानस्तु मां पार्थ
दैवीं प्रकृतिमाश्रिताः
दैवीं प्रकृतिमाश्रिताः
भजन्त्यनन्यमनसः
भजन्त्यनन्यमनसः
ज्ञात्वा भूतादिमव्ययम्
ज्ञात्वा भूतादिमव्ययम्
महात्मानस्तु मां पार्थ दैवीं प्रकृतिमाश्रिताः भजन्त्यनन्यमनसः ज्ञात्वा भूतादिमव्ययम्
महात्मानस्तु मां पार्थ दैवीं प्रकृतिमाश्रिताः भजन्त्यनन्यमनसः ज्ञात्वा भूतादिमव्ययम्
सततं कीर्तयन्तो मां
सततं कीर्तयन्तो मां
यतन्तश्च दृढव्रताः
यतन्तश्च दृढव्रताः
नमस्यन्तश्च मां भक्त्या
नमस्यन्तश्च मां भक्त्या
नित्ययुक्ता उपासते
नित्ययुक्ता उपासते
सततं कीर्तयन्तो मां यतन्तश्च दृढव्रताः नमस्यन्तश्च मां भक्त्या नित्ययुक्ता उपासते
सततं कीर्तयन्तो मां यतन्तश्च दृढव्रताः नमस्यन्तश्च मां भक्त्या नित्ययुक्ता उपासते ज्ञानयज्ञेन चाप्यन्ये
ज्ञानयज्ञेन चाप्यन्ये
यजन्तो मामुपासते
यजन्तो मामुपासते
एकत्वेन पृथक्त्वेन
एकत्वेन पृथक्त्वेन
बहुधा विश्वतो मुखम्
बहुधा विश्वतो मुखम्
ज्ञानयज्ञेन चाप्यन्ये यजन्तो मामुपासते एकत्वेन पृथक्त्वेन बहुधा विश्वतो मुखम्
ज्ञानयज्ञेन चाप्यन्ये यजन्तो मामुपासते एकत्वेन पृथक्त्वेन बहुधा विश्वतो मुखम्
अहं क्रतुरहं यज्ञः
अहं क्रतुरहं यज्ञः
तथाहमहमौषधम्
तथाहमहमौषधम्
मन्त्रोऽहमहमेवाज्यम्
मन्त्रोऽहमहमेवाज्यम्
अहमग्निरहं हुतम्
अहमग्निरहं हुतम्
अहं क्रतुरहं यज्ञः स्वधाहमहमौषधम् मन्त्रोऽहमहमेवाज्यम् अहमग्निरहं हुतम्
अहं क्रतुरहं यज्ञः स्वधाहमहमौषधम् मन्त्रोऽहमहमेवाज्यम् अहम् अग्निरहं हुतम्
पिताहमस्य जगतः
पितामहस्य जगतः
माता धाता पितामहः
माता धाता पितामहः
वेद्यं पवित्रमोङ्कारः
वेद्यं पवित्रमोङ्कारः
सामयजुरेव च
ऋक्सामयजुरेव च
पिताहमस्य जगतः माता धाता पितामहः वेद्यं पवित्रमोङ्कारः ऋक्सामयजुरेव च
पितामहमस्य जगतः माता धाता पितामहः वेद्यं पवित्रमोङ्कारः ऋक्सामयजुरेव च
गतिर्भर्ता प्रभुः साक्षी
गतिर्भर्ता प्रभुः साक्षी
निवासः शरणं सुहृत्
निवासः शरणं सुहृत्
प्रभवः प्रलयस्थानम्
प्रभवः प्रलयस्थानम्
आनं बीजमव्ययम्
निधानं बीजमव्ययम्
गतिर्भर्ता प्रभुः साक्षी निवासः शरणं सुहृत् प्रभवः प्रलयस्थानम् निधानं बीजमव्ययम्
गतिर्भर्ता प्रभुः साक्षी निवासः शरणं सुहृत् प्रभवः प्रलयस्थानम् निधानं बीजमव्ययम्
तपाम्यहमहं वर्षम्
तपाम्यहमहं वर्षम्
निगृह्णाम्युत्सृजामि च
निगृह्णाम्युत्सृजामि च
अमृतं चैव मृत्युश्च
अमृतं चैव मृत्युश्च
तदसच्चाहमर्जुन
तदसच्चाहमर्जुन
तपाम्यहमहं वर्षम् निगृह्णाम्युत्सृजामि च अमृतं चैव मृत्युश्च सदसच्चाहमर्जुन
तपाम्यहमहं वर्षम् निगृह्णाम्युत्सृजामि च Amritam chaiva mrityuscha sadasachyahamarjuna.
त्रैविद्यामां सोमपाः पूतपापाः
Traividyamam somapaputapapaha.
यज्ञैरिष्ट्वा स्वर्गतिं प्रार्थयन्ते
Yajnairištva surgatim prarthayante.
ये पुण्यमासाद्य सुरेन्द्रलोकम्
Te punyamasadya surendra lokam.
अश्नन्ति दिव्यान् दिवि देव भोगान्
Ashnandi divyan divideva bhogan.
त्रैविद्यामां सोमपाः पूतपापाः यज्ञैरिष्ट्वा स्वर्गतिं प्रार्थयन्ते ते पुण्यमासाद्य सुरेन्द्रलोकम् अश्नन्ति दिव्यान् दिवि देव भोगान्
Traividyamam somapaputapapaha. Yajnairištva surgatim prarthayante. Te punyamasadya surendra lokam. Ashnandi divyan divideva bhogan.
एतं भुक्त्वा स्वर्गलोकं विशालम्
Te tam bhuktva surgalokam vishalam.
क्षीणे पुण्ये मर्त्यलोकं विशन्ति
Kshine punye martyalokam vishanti.
एवं त्रयी धर्ममनुप्रपन्नाः
Evam trayi dharmamanu prapannaha.
गतागतं कामकामा लभन्ते
Gadagadam kama kama labhante.
एतं भुक्त्वा स्वर्गलोकं विशालम् क्षीणे पुण्ये मर्त्यलोकं विशन्ति एवं त्रयी धर्ममनुप्रपन्नाः गतागतं कामकामा लभन्ते
Te tam bhuktva surgalokam vishalam. Kshine punye martyalokam vishanti. Evam trayi dharmamanu prapannaha. Gadagatam kama kama labhante.
अनन्याश्चिन्तयन्तो माम्
Ananyas chintayanto mam.
ये जनाः पर्युपासते
Ye janah paryupasate.
येषान् नित्याभियुक्तानां
Tesham nityabhiyuktanam.
योगक्षेमं वहाम्यहम्
Yogakshemam vahamyaham.
अनन्याश्चिन्तयन्तो माम् ये जनाः पर्युपासते तेषान् नित्याभियुक्तानां योगक्षेमं वहाम्यहम्
Ananyas chindayanto mam. Ye janah paryupasate. Tesham nityabhiyuktanam. Yogakshemam vahamyaham.
Thank you so much to all our wonderful chanters. There have been a slight delay because of some internet lag, so we apologize for that. There are technical issues that happen always in internet online platforms. In the earlier slides, the meanings that are given in the earlier slides are by the great commentators of Bhagavad Gita, like Swami Chinmayanandaji, Swami Dayanandaji, Swami Gambhiranandaji, George Feuerstein, Swami Vireshwaranandaji, Ekanadishwaran, Dr. Radhakrishnan, Swami Rama, Yuvan Maskaro. They basically cover the Eastern as well as Western traditions, as well as the classical traditions of Advaita, as well as modern traditions and academic traditions. So we have tried to cover almost all the different traditions of Bhagavad Gita interpretations to give an overall global picture of the whole of the Gita itself. Yeah, now over to Mahatmya by Varshaji, please. You have to unmute. You have to unmute.
I'm sorry. Om Atha Gita Mahatmyam Gita Shastramidam Punyam Yah Pathet Prayatah Puman Vishnof Padamavapnoti Bhayashokadi Varjitaha Gitadhyayanashilasya Pranayama parasya cha naiva santihi papani purva janma kritani cha malanirmochanam pumsam jalasnanam dine dine sakrut gitambhasi snanam samsara malanashanam Gita sugita kartavya kimamnyai shastra vistaraihi ya swayam padmanabhasya mukha padmadvinisrita bharatamrita sarvasvam vishnor-vaktradvinisritam Gita gangodakam pitva Punarjanmana vidyate sarvopanishado gavaha dogdha gopalanandanaha partho vatsasudhir bhokta dugdham geetamritam mahat ekam shastram devaki putra geetam Eko devo devaki putra eva Eko mantrastasya namani yani Karmapyekantasya devasya seva.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Varshaji, for that beautiful rendering of Bhagavad Gita Mahatmyam. Now we come to the this talk session. We are a little bit delayed, but still we'll get another at least 30 minutes of enunciation on the Bhagavad Gita chapter 8 by Brinda Karanamji, who's a very well-known speaker of Gita as well as Sanskrit in Singapore, and she has also been a teacher in other platforms too. And we are very glad to have Brindaji. So now over to Brindaji, please.
Gurureva gatir gurumeva bhaje Gurunaiva sahasmi namo gurave Na gurov paramam shishurasmi guroh Matirasti gurau mama pahi guro Vasudeva sutam devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Sadashiva Samarambham Vyasa Shankara Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Sarvebhyah Hritpurvaka Namaskaraha. At the outset, my humble pranams to all the Vayovriddhas, Jnanavriddhas, Sheelavriddhas who are here in this gathering. So, whenever I'm asked to speak about the Gita, I feel that I'm actually very small, both in experience and Jnanam. Especially to speak to such an august audience where, like I said, we have so many Jnana Vriddhas here. So my humble pranams to all of you. And I'm reminded of what my Guru, Mata Vidushi Anantalakshmi Natrajan Mahodaya always tells us, Mukam karoti vachalam, pangum langhayate girim. So the Gita, it is so powerful that it makes a person who does not have the faculty of speech a great orator. Similarly, another way we could take it is Vachalam api mukam karoti. So it has that power also. And Pangum langhayate girim. So it makes a person who is lame capable of jumping over a hill. So that same Gita Mata also will bless us with and me in this attempt to share a few words about this very unique chapter. So Akshara Brahma Yoga, the 8th chapter of the Gita. And this chapter is very, very unique in the sense that there are many technical Shastric Vedantic concepts, many abstract concepts in this chapter, which Krishna introduces. And probably, we need not just one lifetime, but many lives of sadhana to understand these concepts. But I will try whatever is possible to just explain succinctly. So this Akshara Brahma Yoga has many other names also. So it is called Abhyasa Yoga, Dharana Yoga, Taraka Brahma Yoga, Mangala Marga Yoga, Mahapurusha Yoga, etc. Now, any yoga is a prayatnam or a sadhana or a upaya or yukti to attain Bhagavan. Similarly, in Akshara Brahma Yoga also, we see Bhagavan speaking about different paths to attain that supreme reality. And the greatness of Sanatana Dharma is that it recognizes many paths to reach the same goal, as each of us are in different levels of spiritual evolution. So, like, many rivers flowing from various sources reach the same ocean. Similarly, many yogas, sadhanas, or paths take us to the supreme reality. And one of the specialities of this yoga is that it deals with Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahman. Saguna Brahman, Brahman with attributes. Nirguna Brahman, attributeless. And the divine syllable Om. And also, we see that the Gita gives us the essence of the Upanishads. So like we all know, Sarvopanishado Gavo Dogdha Gopalanandana. So in this chapter, like in many other chapters, we come across verses with many similarities to Kathopanishad and other Upanishads also. I will probably just give you one or two examples from the Kathopanishad. And there are a lot of similarities between this chapter and Kathopanishad. So as we all know, the young boy Nachiketa, by his power of penance, he went to Yamaloka along with this Sharira, Sthula Sharira. And he waited for Yama for 3 days, 3 nights. And he was very steadfast in his resolve to attain knowledge of the Brahman. So he pleads with Yama to give him this Brahmajnanam. And Yama tries to dissuade him, saying that he could ask for riches, anything else. But Nachiketa is so firm that Yama finally blesses him with this jnanam. So Yama gives him this jnanam of imperishable Brahman, syllable Om, etc. So this jnanam, Bhagavan has given us in a capsule form in the entire Gita. And of course, in the Akshara Brahma Yoga specifically, we find many similarities to the Kathopanishad. And certain underlying themes of Akshara Brahma Yoga are, as the name itself suggests, Akshara Brahma, the imperishable supreme reality, the syllable Om, and the importance of Anusmaranam or Anuchintanam or Ananya Chintanam. We come across this many times, that is, to think of Bhagavan continuously without a break, and the importance of Abhyasa Yoga and Bhakti also as a marga. So we come across Bhaktyalabhyastvananyayas. Many times Bhagavan is referring to Bhakti, which also he continues in other chapters of the Gita as well. And another theme we see here is the transient nature of everything apart from the Brahman. And of course, as we all know, we also have this unique concept in this chapter called Krama Mukti. That is not direct Mukti or Jivan Mukti, but liberation through a stage, through the intermediary stage of Brahmaloka. So this is another important theme in this chapter. And this chapter begins with 7 very precise questions asked by Arjuna. So in the 4th chapter, as we all know, Bhagavan himself says, Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshyanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. So that pariprashna, Arjuna has already surrendered to Bhagavan. Shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapannam. He accepts Krishna as his guru, and through this pariprashna, asking these questions, he attains that jnana or knowledge. So these 7 questions form the first 2 verses of the 8th chapter. Now, the seed for these questions that lies in the 7th chapter, last 2 verses. So the 8th chapter, first 2 verses deal with these questions by Arjuna. So the seed was sown in the last 2 verses of the 7th chapter, or Jnana Vijnana Yoga. So there Bhagavan says these 2 last verses of the 7th chapter, Jaramarana Mokshaya Mamashritya Yatantiye Te Brahma Tadviduh Kritsnam Adhyatmam Karma Chakilam Sadhibhutadhiraivam Mam Sadhiyajnancha Ye Viduhu Prayana Kale Pichamam Te Viduryukta Chetasaha. So he has introduced, Bhagavan has introduced 7 concepts in the 7th chapter. So what are these concepts? These are Brahman, Adhyatma, Karma, Adhibhuta, Adhidaiva, Adhiyajna, and he says Prayanakale Vishnu Smaranam or Paramatma Chintanam. That is thinking of Bhagavan at the hour of death or at the time of final journey. So this these 2 verses by Bhagavan prompt Arjuna to quickly ask him, what are these? What are these 7 concepts? So that is how the 8th chapter begins, with these 7 questions. So one thing we must see is the Gita is not just for, of course, definitely for spiritual evolution, but even for our day-to-day life, how it is so useful. So one thing we need to learn from Krishna and Arjuna is how precisely Arjuna asks these questions and how precisely Bhagavan answers them also. And so that precision we see in the first few verses of this chapter. So I will deal with each question and the answer subsequently. The first 2 verses are these 7 questions, and 3 and 4 are the answers to the first 6 questions. The 7th question is answered in verse 5 and subsequently in the other verses, which forms this Prayanakale Vishnu Smaranam, forms a considerable portion of this chapter. So let us go to the first question. So Arjuna asks, Kim Tat Brahma? What is that Brahman? And the answer given by Bhagavan is Paramam Aksharam Brahma. Paramam, that supreme, imperishable, Aksharam or indestructible, is Brahman. So the word Aksharam is qualified by Paramam, indestructible or ultimate. Next question, Kim Adhyatmam? What is spirit? So then, or what is Adhyatma? The answer to that question is Swabhavaha Adhyatmam Uchyate. Swasya Bhavaha, one's own self, is Adhyatma. That is the all-pervading essence, the individual consciousness, the individual soul. But here, the Adhyatmam we are referring to is the totality of individual consciousness. So in chapter 7, we see the word Kritsnam Adhyatmam. So totality or composite. So that is Adhyatma. The third question, Kim Karma? What is action? And the answer, or what is karma? In fact, if you translate these words to English, we will actually not be doing justice. And that is something we should all realize. If I say karma is action, that is exactly not, accurate. But to convey in English, sometimes we use the most, the word which could convey a meaning near it, but that's not exactly what it is. So what is karma? Bhuta bhava udbhava karaha visargaha karma sannitaha. Bhuta bhava udbhava. Udbhava kara is that which brings forth the existence of being, that is, and the discharge of spirits. This is the very basis for creation and preservation. So this is termed as karma. And again here what we are referring to is the totality of karmas resulting in the universe, or composite karma. The next question, question 4. Adhibhutancha kim proktam? What is adhibhuta? And very loosely translating adhibhuta, matter, but like I said, it is not accurate translation. Adhibhutam ksharaha bhavaha. All perishable objects or matter or physical bodies, we see this in the form of the gross body, is adhibhuta. And all this thula shariram, everything that is gross is perishable, ksharaha, as opposed to Akshara. Akshara is imperishable. Kshara is perishable. Next, question 5. Adhidaivam kim uchyate? What is Adhidaiva? The answer to this is Adhidaivatam Purushaha. The Purusha is Adhidaiva. Now, what is Purusha? Who is Purusha rather? So this is the Hiranyagarbha Tattvam. So Paramatma is associated here, the Paramatma in Hiranyagarbha Tattvam, as Hiranyagarbha Tattvam, he bestows certain micro powers. So Purusha is the vital energy or life force. So Purnam Anena Sarvam. By this, everything is Purnam. That is Purusha. Now, how do we understand this? I think when I was thinking about it, I was reminded of one of the verses from Dhruva Stuti of Srimad Bhagavatam. So when Dhruva sees Bhagavan, that small boy, that stotram just comes out of his mind, comes out of his mouth spontaneously. So in Dhruva Stuti, he says, Yontaf pravishya mama vacham imam prasuptam sanjivayati akhila shaktidhara swadamna anyamscha hasta charana shravana tvagadin pranannamo bhagavate purushaya tubhyam. So there we see this word Purusha also. So, O Supreme Being, you activate the dormant speech. So all these faculties are dormant in us. So just by having a mouth or physical organs of eyes or physical organs of ears, we cannot assume that the faculties are automatic. So the Bhagavan is the one being the Purusha, Hiranyagarbha inside, who activates these faculties. So that person is Purusha and Adhidaiva. Next question, question 6. Who is Adhiyajna, or the Lord of Sacrifices? And related to that, Katham Dehe Asmin Madhusudana, how does he dwell in this body? The answer 6 is Adhiyajnaha Dehe Ahameva Atra. Bhagavan says, I am Adhiyajna, or the Lord of Sacrifices, the one who dispenses the fruit of all actions, Karma Phaladata. And he dwells as an inner witness in this body. We know this very famous line from the Vedas, Yajno Vai Vishnuhu. So that is Adhiyajna is Bhagavan himself dwelling in this body. So we have completed 6 questions. The 7th question, Prayana Kale Niyatatma Bhihi Katham Jneyaha Asi. Prayana Kale, at the time of final journey, and the word to be noted here is Niyatatma Bhihi, the ones with a steadfast mind, the yogis who have devoted themselves to realizing Bhagavan. How are you to be realized by such Niyatatmas at the time of final journey? And this forms the answer from verses 5 to 15. So Bhagavan says, when thinking only about Bhagavan, Antakale cha, Mam eva smaran, thinking only of me, Yaha Kalevaram Tyajati, the one who gives up this sthula sharira or the gross body by thinking only of Bhagavan and nothing else. So that single-minded thought only on Bhagavan, he reaches Bhagavan, nastyatra samshayaha. There is absolutely no doubt about this. So this cha, we should note the syllable or the avyayam, indeclinable cha here. So it is used in the sense of also api, meaning even at the last hour of death, such a person only thinks of Bhagavan. So it is not possible to say that, throughout the life, I will be thinking of other things. I will not think of Bhagavan, and suddenly at the hour of death, I think of him. It is extremely difficult. Just to give a very mundane example, we prepare well for exams and we go, and sometimes in those 3 hours, though we have studied, it may not strike us. It's very common to all of us, to others also. We come out and think, oh, I'd studied this, but it didn't strike me at the right time. Similarly, for lawyers, just to give an example from profession, we prepare for a case or we go before a judge or an arbitrator. At that point of time, when that question is asked or that situation comes, at that time, we need to use whatever we have studied or prepared. Sometimes after the argument, you think, oh, I should have said this. So when we are completely in our senses, completely in control, we experience this many times. The right thought won't strike us at the right time. This being the case, unless there is an abhyasa throughout life, It is not possible to think of Bhagavan at the nth hour, at the time of final journey, unless the mind is conditioned to it. So it should become an akhanda yajna throughout life to think of Bhagavan. One example we have is in Bhishma. So when he was lying on the bed of arrows, he only thought of Bhagavan Krishna, no one else. So there's a very beautiful analogy given in one of the Sanskrit works. They say Tailadharavat, meaning when oil is dropped, or when you pour oil from one container to the other, you see that chain of oil, that flow is without a break. So that is how he was thinking of Bhagavan, in so much pain, laying on this bed of arrows. And he also, of course, decided his time of death. He had that blessing from his father. So Bhishma is a great example of who thought of only Bhagavan during his last days, his final journey. So this Svabhavika Vyavastha is shown in the last minute. So that has to be cultivated throughout one's life. And we have examples in our Puranas like Dhruva, Prahlada, Nachiketa, who were devoted to Bhagavan right since their very young age. So when Prahlada's father asked him, what is the best that you have studied? He says, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnoho Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atmanivedanam. So these 9 types of bhakti are the best among whatever I have studied. So we see this being, we see this kind of bhakti, Ananya Chintana, in very young children also, which is why we say nahi vayaha tejaso hetuhu. Age is never a determinant for brilliance. Then Bhagavan moves on to say in the 6th verse, whatever one thinks of at the time of death or in the final hour, that particular form is attained. So yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram tam tamevaiti kaunteya. Therefore, tasmat, the next verse begins with tasmat. Therefore, this verse connects to the previous 2 verses. Sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all times think of me, anusmara, yudhya. Now, we could spend some time on this word yudhya. Here, yudhya means think of me and fight. So, fight here is according to the duty ordained to Arjuna as a kshatriya at that point of time in a war. So this for all of us means thinking of Bhagavan at all times and going about our day-to-day duties and activities in a dispassionate manner as an offering to Bhagavan. So we see the examples of Gopikas of Vraja who saw Krishna everywhere. And 2 verses which I really want to share here are Shankaracharya in Shivamanasa Puja, Atmatvam Girijamatihi. So in that verse, he says, Atmatvam Girijamati Sahacharaha Prana Shariram Griham Pujate Vishayopabhoga Rachana Nidra Samadhi Sthitihi Sancharav Padayoho Pradakshina Vidhihi Stotrani Sarvagiro Yadyat Karma Karomi, whatever I do, Tat Akhilam, everything, Shambho Tava Aradhanam. Oh Shambho, let it be an Aradhana, an offering to you. Very similar bhava is seen in Saundarya Lahari again of Adi Shankara in the verse Japo Jalpa Shilpam, where he says, Oh Devi, let my speech, whatever I utter, become your japa. Whatever I do with my hands, let it be mudra. When I rest, let that also be a prostration to you. So a similar bhava is seen in Saundarya Lahari also. So in recent times, it seems there was one devotee who went to Bharati Tirtha Shri Charanaha of Sringeri and shared with him that I have a large family and all my time goes in caring for the family and doing household chores. I don't get time to think of Bhagavati, do japa, meditation. So Acharya told her that when you are doing your work, think of Bhagavati. When you get up every day, when you wake up, awaken Sharadamba in you. So when you eat something, let it be an ahuti to Sharadamba. So in this way, doing your daily duties, that itself, your life itself becomes samarpanam to Bhagavan. And how does this happen? Then Bhagavan tells us Abhyasa Yoga. So this we come across in many places in the Gita. So chetasa nanyagamina abhyasa yoga yuktena anuchintayan. So without the mind wavering at all, chetasa na anyagamina, and through abhyasa. So we come across this abhyasa even when Arjuna tells Krishna that the mind is like a mad elephant, chanchalam manaha, pramati balavadridam, how to control it. So there again Krishna says, no doubt mind is so wavering like a mad elephant, but abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate. So we see the importance of abhyasa yoga, and through this abhyasa one can condition the mind to think of Bhagavan always, so that even at the last hour you will only think of Bhagavan and no one else. Another very famous story, an incident which I remember is relatively recently, 15th, 16th century, we had Sri Appaya Dikshitendraha, a very great Advaitic scholar who has composed many great works in Sanskritam. So he wanted to test himself as to what his mind thinks about when he has no control over himself. So his Shishyas, they gave him some drink, by which he entered into a state where he had no control of what was happening around him. So sort of an intoxicated state, if we may call it. And then immediately when he was in that state, all that came out of his mouth was stotram of Shiva. And the Shishyas wrote that down. And that stotram is famous as Unmatta Panchashati. So in that state also, he was only thinking of Shiva. So we have seen such examples in relatively recent times, like 15th, 16th century. Next, in the 9th verse, Bhagavan gives us some attributes. Kavim, Puranam, Anushasitaram, Anoraniyam Sam Anusmaredyaha, Sarvasya Dhataram, Achintya Rupam, Adityavarnam Tamasaf Parastat. So what these are, certain qualities. Kavim, all wise or omniscient. Puranam, ageless or ancient. Anushasitaram, ruler of all. Anoraniyamsam is minuter than the minutest or subtler than the subtlest. And Sarvasya Dhataram, sustainer of all, having a form beyond human contemplation, is Achintya Rupam, effulgent like the sun, Aditya Varnam, beyond darkness of ignorance, Tamasaf Parastat, Anusmarete, to contemplate on that. By contemplating on such supreme reality, Achalena Manasa, again without thinking of anything else, Bhaktya Yuktaha, this is very important, with devotion. So Bhagavan again and again emphasizes on bhakti here, and of course even in the next chapter, in the 9th chapter we see this, and in the further chapters also, Bhaktya Yuktaha. And with yoga bala, this of course comes only by practice, and also when you learn it from, and this is given as an upadesha by a guru. So this yoga where the yogis learn how to get the prana ascends, and in the Agnya Chakra, pranam aveshya, to control or firmly holding the prana, dharana, in between the eyebrows, that is in the Agnya Chakra, then such a yogi attains the supreme being or Parama Purusha. So having said this way of attaining, this is also in answer to the question of Arjuna as to how does one think of Bhagavan in the last hour. Then Bhagavan goes to explain about the syllable Om. So he says, and this verse here, Yadaksharam Veda Vido Vadanti, is similar to what Yama also bestows on Nachiketa in the Kathopanishad. So here Bhagavan says that he shall tell him about that supreme state which Vedavids term as imperishable, which yatis, free from passion, enter, and desiring which the celibates practice brahmacharya. So Sarvadvarani Samyamya means having closed all doors, in the sense that having withdrawn the senses from their objects and firmly holding mind in the heart. The heart is Paramatma Sthanam or Anahata Chakra, and fixing the prana in the head So what does this mean? So as we all know, in yoga, there are various chakras. So on top of the head is a 1,000-petaled inverted lotus. And in the middle, the yogis teach us that there is a Sahasrara chakra. And through yoga sadhana, these yogis, they are able to leave their prana by their own will through this Sahasrara chakra. So such yogis, remaining in the yogic concentration of God, they leave the body and depart, and they are uttering the imperishable Brahman, Om, and constantly thinking of Bhagavan, and they attain the supreme state. So next, Bhagavan says, Om ityekaksharam Brahma. So ekaksharam, that Om is one syllable, the imperishable syllable, which is supreme, which is Brahman. And just by knowing this syllable and by thinking of this syllable or uttering this syllable, when one leaves this body, yaf prayati tyajan deham saha paramam gatim yati, he is able to attain the supreme state. So again, there is a verse similar in Kathopanishad, etadhyevaksharam brahma, etadhyevaksharam param, etadhyevaksharam jnatva, yo yadichati tasya tat. Again, Bhagavan speaks about ananya chetaha, satatam yaha mam smarati. So this is repeated again and again in this chapter. Who thinks of Bhagavan with an unwavering mind, without thinking of anything else, for such a person, aham sulabhaha partha, I am easily attainable by such a person. And who is such a person? Nityayuktasya yoginaha. Nityayukta is someone who is always absorbed in Bhagavan. To such a person, Bhagavan is attainable easily. So this is the Sulabha Marga, the easier path where one always thinks of Bhagavan without wavering at all. So the gist is, O Arjuna, to a yogi who is ever absorbed in me, who continuously thinks of me always, I am easily attainable. And next, Bhagavan goes to how by reaching Bhagavan, one doesn't have to be entangled in this cycle of birth and death, which is transient. And it is a cycle, the jiva goes through this cycle of birth and death, punarapi jaranam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jathare shayanam, iha samsare bahudustare, kripaya pare, pahi murare, like Shankaracharya says in Mohamudgaram. So how are you freed from this punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam cycle? Only mam upetya. Like Bhagavan says, having reached Bhagavan, this dukkhalayam, full of sorrow, ashashvatam, transient state of punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam is one can overcome. And he goes on to say that all the lokas, so if we are on Prithvi or the earth, so the Shastras tell us that there are 14 lokas, so 7 higher ones. And these are Bhuhu, Bhuvaha, Swaha, Maha, Janaha, Tapaha, and Satya above us. Below there are Patalas, lower ones. Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Rasatala, Talatala, Mahatala, Patala, Naraka. So you have so many lokas. Now, Urdhva lokas, the ones above, are supposed to be full of pleasure and there is no pain there, etc. So even these lokas are transient. So some of them might, in Vedas, it is very common to hear the Swarga Kamo Yajeta. The ones who want to attain Swarga or Urdhva lokas will perform certain yajnas. Even after performing those yajnas, once the punya account or merit is over, once the merit is completed or finished, then they are thrown back to the earth. So, Abrahma Bhuvana Lokaha Punaravartinaha. So these lokas are all transient. However, Mam Upetya, having reached Krishna, Punarjanma na vidyate. There is no Punarjanma. So that is the state to aspire for. And then next, a very interesting verse, which is that one day of Brahma extends to 1,000 Mahayugas, and one night is also another 1,000 Mahayugas. So one celestial yuga is 43,20,000 human years. 1,000 such celestial yugas would be 432 crore 432 crore human years is 1 day of Brahma, and 432 crore human years are 1 night of Brahma. So day of Brahma is Kalpa or Sarga, period of creation. Night is dissolution or Pralaya. So even this Brahma's life, abode are finite and limited by time. So all embodied things, they emanate from the unmanifest at the cosmic day, that is day for Brahma, and they merge into that unmanifest in the cosmic night. So this is Srishti and the creation and dissolution. Avyaktad vyaktaya sarvaha prabhavantyah ragame ratriagame praliyante. So the ratri is pralaya. Ratri for Brahma is pralaya. Tatraiva vyakta sanyake. Avyakta here is unmanifest, but here what unmanifest we are referring to is the Prakriti, the unmanifest Prakriti from which everything evolves, and at the time of dissolution everything goes back to it. So bhutva bhutva praliyate, there is this continuous process of creation and dissolution. And paras tasma, even higher than that, tasmat paraha, even higher than that, there is an unmanifest, that is avyaktaha, sanatanaha, eternal. It does not have any birth or death or beginning or end. Saha sarveshu bhuteshu nashyatsu. Even when all the beings are destroyed, saha navinashyati. That supreme reality does not perish. That supreme divine person does not perish. So this is what Bhagavan is saying here. So that supreme reality, which is eternal, tam paramam gatim ahuhu. That is the final, that is the ultimate state, having attained which, and that is also tadhama paramam mama, that is my supreme abode. Tam prapyam prapya, having gone there, reached that state, na nivartante, they will not come back. So this is the point of no return, having reached Bhagavan. So then Bhagavan proceeds to tell us the meaning of attaining that supreme state. He says, ananyaya bhaktya labhyaha, ananya bhakti. So again we see here, through that unflinching, unwavering devotion, that supreme state is attainable. Partha, yasyantasthani bhutani, in whom all beings reside. Yena sarvamidam tatam, by whom everything is pervaded. We see this in second chapter also. Avinashitu tadvidhi yena sarvamidam tatam, Bhagavan says in the second chapter. Same bhava here also. That avinashi, that is imperishable or indestructible, by which everything is pervaded. And so that Purusha is attainable only through Ananya Bhakti. So we see even in 10th, 11th chapters, Bhagavan says, Naham Vedair Natapasa Nadanena Chejaya Shakya Evam Vidho Drashtum Drishtavanasi Mamyatha Bhaktyaatvananyaya Shakyaha. Only through Ananya Bhakti I am attainable in this way, O Arjuna. So this is the importance of Ananya Bhakti. In the next few verses, and I think I will quickly complete this due to paucity of time, Bhagavan speaks of two paths. One path of no return and the path of return. So the path of no return is the Shukla path, or the path of light. Agnihi, Jyotihi, Ahaha. Path of return is the dark path. Okay, Krishna, etc. Now, here I think we need to be a little clear that these two paths are also for yogis. So, avrittim, anavrittim chaiva yoginaha. They are also yogis only. And that I will explain to you, he says. So, in the 24th verse, the path of the bright path, or the Archi path as it's called, and here the Devatas are Agnihi, Jyotihi, Ahaha, Shuklaha, and Uttarayanam, that is the northern course of the sun. So when a Jiva goes by this path, then that Jiva goes Brahma Vidojanaha, reaches Brahma, Brahmaloka, from there gets Mukti. So this is Krama Mukti. That is one stage of reaching Brahmaloka. From there, that yogi gets Mukti. So this path is not direct Mukti. So you may ask, what is direct Mukti? So we know the concept of Jivan Mukti, right? So while they are living, only yogis attain, they get liberated. So that is along with the Sthula Sharira itself, when they are there, they have attained liberation. Do such yogis exist? Of course, even in relatively recent times, we know the examples of Sri Sadashiva Brahmendraha, Sri Chandrasekhara Bharati Mahaswaminaha, who attained this state when self along with this jiva. That is the highest state. So that is, they attain mukti here itself with this body. Krama mukti is what Bhagavan is referring to in the 8th chapter. That is the yogis, and this refers to nishkama karma yogis. They do all their karma, but without in a dispassionate way. So nishkama karma yoga. And with that, they go through this path of light. They reach Brahmaloka. From there, they attain liberation. That is krama mukti. Then we have the other path, that is the Krishna path of the dark path. Dhumaha ratrihi tatha Krishnaha shanmasa dakshinayanam. So Dhuma is the deity presiding over smoke, goddess presiding over night time, ratrihi, Krishnaha, dark fortnight, dakshinayanam, that is the 6 months of southward journey of the sun. When the yogi goes by this path, Chandramasam jyotihi prapya, having attained luster of the moon, that yogi returns. So this path is for Sakama Karma Yogi. So like we know, the Vedas say that Swarga Kamo Yajeta. So you want the Urdhvalokas, you do these karmas, these yajnas, you will get Urdhvalokas. So there are many yogis who do all the karmas, and they are Sakama Karma Yogis with desire to attain something. So such yogis, they go by this dark path, they reach that loka, and after their punya account is exhausted, they are pushed back, like we learned today in the chanting, Tetam bhuktva swargalokam vishalam kshine punye martyalokam vishanti. After having enjoyed that loka, swargaloka, urdhvalokas, when the merit decreases, when the punya is exhausted, they come back to this world. But the krama muktis, the ones who attain krama mukti, they go to brahmaloka. From there, they attain liberation. And the jivan muktis, being here itself, yogaratova, bhogaratova, sangaratova, sangavihinaha, yasya brahmani ramate chittam, nandati nandati nandatyeva. So whether they are in yoga or bhoga, their mind, they are Brahman, they have realized Brahman. And always nandati nandati nandatyeva. They are in that state of supreme ananda along with this body. Sadashiva Brahmendra's Shishyas, co-disciples, saw him in that state, and they went and told the Guru what is happening. He is in some blissful state, unaware of the world, etc. The Guru says, laments, oh, I haven't reached that state yet. He has attained the ultimate, which is the reason for taking birth as humans. So then Bhagavan says, these two paths, ete sriti, the yogi Janan, having known these two paths, the yogi na muhyati. So having known these two paths, that is the Krishna and the Shukla path, the path of return, path of no return, the yogi is not deluded. Again, tasmat sarveshu kaleshu. So twice we see this phrase in this chapter. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmara yudhyacha. We already discussed that. Here, tasmat sarveshu kaleshu yoga yukto bhava Arjuna. O Arjuna, therefore, always be steadfast in yoga. Because a yogi who knows about these two paths does not get attached to any form of enjoyment. He strives for ultimate realization of the Brahman alone. Bhagavan concludes this chapter by saying that whatever punya one gets through Vedas, yajnas, Vedeshu, yajneshu, tapassu by penance, daneshu by charity, yat punya phalam pradishtam, whatever punya is said to be attained, merit is said to be attained by all these things, a yogi transcends all this. Tat sarvam atyeti, yogi param sthanam upaiti. Param adyam sthanam yogi upaiti. So the yogi reaches that beginningless supreme state, and Paramatma Bhakti, it transcends all these rewards which all the other karmas give, Veda, Yajna, etc. And the yogi reaches that ultimate state. So this is the final verse of this Akshara Brahma Yoga. And my humble pranams to all my gurus. So whatever I was able to speak today is only because of my guru Vidushi Anantalakshmi Natarajan Mahodaya, with whom I literally grew up. And my parents, I'm very grateful to them for putting me in association with such a guru during my childhood days. And I would like to acknowledge the sources, because nothing what I have said is my own. So I request you to please, like Hamsa Kshiraniyaya, please take the Kshiram and please leave the water. Whatever are the flaws are due to my inadequacy. So the sources are Tattva Vivechani, that is Shri Jayadayal Goyanandka Gorakhpur Press publication, Gita Talks by Gurudev Swami Chinmayanand Ji, and Srimad Bhagavad Gita Discourse by Brahmashri Samavedam Shanmukha Sharma Garu, and Gita Sangha, where I learned Gita and Sanskritam in Bangalore, and some of the lectures by Srimati Rama Shivaraman from Vyoma Linguistic Labs Foundation. So with this, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Gita Jayanti Singapore, to Hindu Endowments Board, to Srinivasan Mahodaya for posing this confidence in me. I really didn't think that I deserved to talk about this. Like I said, I feel I'm very small in jnanam and experience before all of you. To Krishna Kumar Mahodaya and to everyone else, and to K.V. Rao Mahodaya, who rightly said in the beginning that this is a journey of self-realization, and we are all at different levels of in this journey. So with this, my humble pranams to Gita Mata and Bhagavan Shri Krishna. Ram Ram Ram, Dhanyavadaha.
Thank you so much, Brindaji, for that fantastic speech. And, as you rightly said, this chapter is filled with so many technical terms and so many technical concepts, Adhibhuda, Adhiyajna, and Akshara Brahma, and so many such ideas which are probably impossible to be translated into English. So I think you have, and not only that, your talk was prepared with, lives of the great saints, Sadashiva Brahmendra and other wonderful saints also. So fantastic, beautiful talk, and we are all very blessed to hear such a wonderful talk from you. So now we will continue with the, we have a little bit, few more things to complete, and after that we hope that you can wait for some more time to answer some questions from the audience if they have any. So now we move over to the next segment of this thing. We have introduced a new thing called mini quiz, in which actually we encourage people to study the chapter, the portions which are actually chanted today as well as last time, so that you can answer the questions. And this part will be handled by Ananya. Over to Ananya, please. I will just Ananya, can you?
Hello, Ji, can you
hear
me?
Yeah, let me just introduce Ananya to you. Ananya is basically a university student of Singapore, and she is pursuing her double degree in computer science and business with full scholarship from the Ministry of National Development. And outside of academics, and she's been a student of Bharatanatyam for the past 15 years, and she's a professional dancer and a choreographer and a teacher also now at this young age. And on top of all this is that she is a winner of Bhagavad Gita chanting competitions held by Gita Jayanti several times, and we are really it's very, very nice to have youngsters like Ananya to take over, to lead these kind of initiatives on and host such mini quizzes. So over to Ananya. So I will start sharing the screen so that you can actually take over.
Thank you, sir. You're always too kind.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay, so now we will be moving on to the mini Gita quiz for this week. So there's two types of questions, one to be answered in a couple or a few words, and the second type to be answered in a sentence of less than 20 words. Questions in these quizzes will be based on verses chanted in this specific session or the main chapter dealt with in this session. So quiz questions here are based on the Srimad Bhagavad Gita chapter 8 only, which has 28 verses. Portions chanted in sessions, the portions include the portions chanted in sessions 8 and 9. Questions for each session will be explained in the respective sessions. You can always see the session videos at the Gita Jayanti Facebook page or the Gita Jayanti YouTube channel again. Answers to questions and names of top correct responses will be presented at the future sessions. The questions need to be answered through the online links that are given in the next slide. Please note that there will be no real-time question answer section here. So the link for this would be tinyurl.com/minigitaquiz S09. So it's tinyurl.com/minigitaquiz09. Okay, so the type 1 of questions are the questions to be answered with a couple or a few words. Question 1. In 8.3, how does Krishna define Brahman, the supreme reality? Question 2. How many yugas constitute a full day in the life of Brahmadeva, the creator? Krishna describes the process of creation and dissolution in 8.18 and 8.19. How does this cycle correlate with the life of Brahmadeva? How does Krishna describe what is beyond the unmanifest or avyakta in 8.20 and 8.21? Lastly, for this section, what does Krishna appeal Arjuna to become in 8.27 and 28, by which he will never be deluded and will achieve the supreme state? Now we will move on to the section where we need to answer in less than 20 words. Longer answers will be rejected. So the first is, Krishna defines Adhyatma or Adhibhuta, Adhyatma, Adhibhuta, Adideva, and Adiyajna in 8.3 and 8.4. How does he define these? Next, describe how in 8.7, Krishna tells Arjuna how he should fight the war, and the result of which is nothing short of achieving himself. Next, in 8.9, 10, and 8.12 and 13, how does Krishna describe the process of leaving the body so as to reach the supreme? What are the characteristics of the path of non-return, anavritti, described by Krishna in 8.24? What are the characteristics of the path of return, avritti, described by Krishna in 8.25? That brings us to the end of the quiz for this session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Ananya. So actually, people who have listened to the talk by Brindaji should be able to answer almost all the questions here.
Correct.
And on top of that, you must actually read a little bit of the Gita, then you will definitely answer all the questions. So now we come to the final part of this segment of this session. So this will be the final mantras, concluding mantras by Sonalji, please.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Dhanvantaramurtaye Amritakalashahastaya Sarvamaya Vinashanaya Trailokyanataya Mahavishnave Swaha. Om Achyutaya Namaha. Om Anantaya Namaha. Om Govindaya Namaha. Om Achyutaya Namaha. Om Anantaya Namaha. Om Govindaya Namaha. Om Achyutaya Namaha. Om Anantaya Namaha. Om Govindaya Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Bante Jagadgurum Loka Samastha Sukhino Bhavantu Loka Samastha Sukhino Bhavantu Loka Samastha Sukhino Bhavantu Kayena Vacha Manasendriyerva Buddhyatmana va Prakriti Swabhavat Karomi Yadyat Sakalam Parasmai Narayaneti Samarpayami. Om Purnamada Purnamitam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sada. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Om. Om.
Hari Om. Thank you, everybody. And now we have some announcements regarding upcoming events of Gita Jayanti. Tomorrow at 6 p.m. Singapore time, we have the Bhajan Sandhya, and the singer is Ampili Pillai, who is a very well-known guru of Carnatic music in Singapore, and she will be giving her Bhajan concert tomorrow for 45 to 50 minutes. And at the same time, there will be also featuring of paintings by the local visual artist Kalidas, J. Kalidas. So this is one of the announcements. This and the here it is be broadcast live over the Gita Jayanti Singapore Facebook page. So please don't miss it, and a beautiful opportunity to listen to some nice bhajans. And then the next announcement is the Gita Havan, which is going to come the next week, next Sunday, not tomorrow, the Sunday after that. We have the Gita Havan. So this is from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. And it will contain, in the beginning, there will be some Krishna Ashtottara and Ganpati Homam and all that. At about 8:30 or so, we chant the full Bhagavad Gita, and for every verse of the Bhagavad Gita, there will be Ahuti into multiple Homakundas. So this is a very, very auspicious Ahuti ceremony, where the full Bhagavad Gita, all the verses will be, Ahuti will be performed for every one of these verses with different Homadravyas. And it will be also followed by Mahaprasadam, and the full Gita will be chanted by the various chanters which are who chanted today, as well as our standard chanters, and many others too. So everybody is welcome for this. So please do come. And this is a physical event, and only the and there will be a full Mahaprasadam also. Full Prasadam will be available. So that'll be around 1 o'clock or so. So please do come, and don't miss this physical event. After 2 or 3 years, we are finally getting to meet each other physically. And the next announcement that we have is on the September 10th, we have this the cultural program where called Krishna Manjari 2022. And this will, the main highlight of the 2022, this also will be a physical event after 2 or 3 years. And it will feature Surya Gayatri, the famous internet sensation, who has got more than 150 million supporters and viewers across the world. And she will be performing, she'll be doing her 1.5-hour concert, plus we'll have also performances from local artists of Singapore. So this is on 10th of September, and there are tickets are available. There's a $10 nominal ticket of $10 only, with and it'll also have food also. So practically it's practically free. And the details are available at the Gita Jayanti website, as well as suryafest.org, where you'll be able to request for tickets. So these are the 3 announcements for now, and that's all the announcements. And the next session will.
1 second, sorry to interrupt. I have some additions to your announcements.
Yeah.
Can I make them?
Oh yeah, please go ahead. Yeah, sure.
I think I want to also highlight that during the Havan this year, we will not have a flag handing over ceremony or other formalities. So instead of that, we will have a full bhajan by famous bhajan concerts player, Sri Parasu Kalyan ji. So it will be after the chanting, before the Deeparadhana in between. So please do join the session and chant the Bhagavan Nama. Like Brindaji said that now, that chanting Nama should be always a life practice, and this is one way we can also do at a point of time, and that's one. And on 3rd September, there will be Sarvapriyananda's lecture, online lecture, International Gita Forum. That will be on 7 p.m. in Singapore time. So this will be the 3rd installment of the IGF lecture, and we'll be talking on a chapter 4 based topic, spiritualizing the action. And Gita Jayanti does various measures, various formats, various methodologies to keep Gita associated with us in our life in every form. That's why we have chanting, we have lectures, we have bhajans, we have concerts, we have everything. And the new initiative now introduces Likita Gita Samarpan. So this will details will be announced. The idea is that to write Gita shlokas every day in your own handwriting in a notebook in any language of where you are comfortable with, and then on the Moksha Day Parayan on 4th of December on Sunday, you can bring your copies of the booklets and we'll place them on the altar, and it will be get much more blessed by the vibrating chant of the people present in the auditorium as well as the puja, and then you can collect back that personal copy later on. So please do spread the word around. If you start on 1st August, we think on average 6 shlokas a day will take you to the completion of Bhagavad Gita, including the Dhyana shlokas and everything, by 30th November. But of course, there is only an indication. You can write much faster and finish up before that also. So please do participate and spread the word around in Likita Gita Samarpan. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Srinivas. I really missed that, the Sarvapriyanandaji's talk, and I should have said that, so that part I missed. So that's happening on the 3rd of September. Please don't forget. So after 3rd is the 10th is the Krishna Manjari. So 1 week before that is the Swami Sarvapriyanandaji's online talk, and the details will be given. It's available. It'll be live streamed over Facebook as well as YouTube channels of Gita Jayanti. And the next Parayan is on 2 weeks from today, as usual, on the 6th of August. And we will cover from the 9th chapter, verse 22 onwards. So we conclude today's session with this. And now I will actually stop sharing, and it's a time for people to ask questions to our distinguished speaker for today. And I will actually enable, and before that, request everybody to actually show your videos, show your pictures, so that we can take some snapshots, and you can also after this ask questions. I will enable unmuting by everybody, so everybody will be able to unmute yourself and to ask your questions if you have any. So please switch on your videos, please, so that you can take some photographs. Request everybody to switch on videos, please. Okay, thank you so much. And now is the time for questions from the audience.
I want to ask one question.
Sure.
If this soul leaves the body in Uttarayanam, there is no birth, right? No birth, am I right? Dakshinayam means rebirth, right?
Actually, Bhagini, that is not the way this is meant. That is a very common understanding that is the time which is referred to when we read the shloka. But lot of commentators, great scholars have clarified that what is referred to in these 2 shlokas, Shukla Krishna and the following 2 verses, is not the time of death, but the path which the jiva takes. So what happens is, if a yogi, a nishkama karma yogi, who is destined or who is qualified rather to take the path of light, if such a nishkama karma yogi, if he breathes his last, say in Dakshinayanam, then what will happen is the Dakshinayana Devata will protect such a soul, such a yogi, and will hand over that yogi to the Uttarayana Devata when the Uttarayanam comes, and that soul will take the path of light only. So it is not the time of death which is referred to here. What is referred to is the path. So the devatas or the devas which are designated for that path. Similarly, if say a soul who is qualified to go in the morning, ahaha, such a soul leaves the body at night, then that soul will be protected by the deva of night till morning and will be handed over to the deva of morning. And this is not what I say, this is what scholars and commentaries say. And this is how we have to understand that. So it is not the time of death. One difference is that Jiva qualified to go in the Shukla path or the bright path. If such a Jiva leaves the body in the bright path itself, immediately that journey will happen. But if that the soul leaves the body in say the dark time, then there is a waiting time before that bright path is taken. So this is the meaning. So it is not that everyone who dies in Uttarayanam gets Kramamukti and everyone who dies in Dakshinayanam comes back. That is not the meaning.
It sounds okay. And then I want to know the month. They say no, Uttarayanam from January to June and then July to December. Can you tell the month?
So I think from Shankranti, and please correct me others if I'm wrong here, from Shankranti 6 months would be Uttarayanam, and after 6 months would
I want the English month's name,
English.
Makar Sankranti is actually January 14th in the current perspective. But again, there seems to be some confusion about this, because this, according to science, it is, I have read also that it could be in December, where if you really look at the sun's, the northern path as well as the southern path. So anyway, it's approximately around December to January is the time frame. So that is when the actual northern part of the sun takes place. So Uttarayanam starts, at least conventionally, it's supposed to be after the Makar Sankranti, which happens to be on January 14th.
I can say that as per the almanacs, the time given is Makar Sankranti that occurs January 14th or 15th till July 15th when in the what do you call Sauramanasa, Ashada month begins. So that will be around July 15th or so. We just Dakshinayam commenced on last Sunday. So July 17th. So that's a period. Middle of January to middle of July is the Uttarayana. Middle of July to middle of early part of January is the Dakshinayana, as for the almanacs.
Yeah, the most celebrated case is that of Bhishma, Bhishma Pitamaha, who actually who has the ability to select his own time of departure, and he waited till the Uttarayanam happens. So there is something to the actual physical path of the sun, but like Brindaji said, that is not the only thing. Bhishma achieved mukti because he was Bhishma, not because he took the sad time.
In fact, just add on more, even though we say January 15th as a Makar Sankranti day, we also celebrate Ratha Saptami exactly on the day which the chariot turns towards north. So it is also there. So there are a lot of things like that. But I think purpose is that I think we should not dwell upon the times and concept or anything, but go beyond that and understand the purpose and meaning of it.
Correct.
Getting stuck in the numbers and things.
Yeah, must take the spiritual meaning of it. Anybody else has any other questions?
No, but if they don't follow anything, this path, but still, if the soul leave here, will they attain that mukti or not? If they never practice anything, lah. No, huh?
She's shaking her head.
So,
just to know, because my friend passed 1 month ago, that's why I want to know.
No, please don't bother about other people. You bother only about yourself.
But I think there is no easy way around for it.
Yeah, there is no quick fix or there is no instant paths to mukti, definitely. And everywhere this Bhagavad Gita says Ananyas Chinta Indomam. That means there is no part-time bhakti also allowed. It will not take you anywhere at all. It says, avyabhijarani bhakti. So everywhere the focus is the single pointed, focused, undiluted and continuous devotion to God is the only thing which can take you anywhere. To say that you will die at the time of Uttarayanam and you go to achieve mukti is absolute nonsense. Okay, I have one question, Brindaji. See, verse 20, parastasmatu bhavonyo vyakto vyaktat sanatana. So he says there is one avyakta and there is one avyakta on top of another avyakta. Parastasmatu bhavonyo avyakto vyaktat sanatana. So that's what it says. Tasmat avyaktat paraha sanatana anya avyaktaha bhava. So that's what it says. So there is one avyakta on top of another avyakta. So this is, could you throw some light on this verse?
Yes, sure, Mahodaya. So at the time, so in the previous verses, Bhagavan has spoken of one avyakta, the unmanifest. So he says at the time of creation, everything comes out of that unmanifest, and dissolution, it goes back to that unmanifest. So that unmanifest, into which everything merges and from which everything emerges, that is the prakriti. That is the avyakta, as in the prakriti, from which all
Mula prakriti.
Mula prakriti. But beyond that, paraha tasmat, so beyond that, much higher than that avyakta, there is another sanatana, that is eternal, unmanifest existence, which is the supreme divine person, which even though all the beings are perishing and there is again a creation, that being na vinashyati. So that being, that eternal being, supreme being, that avyakta. So here the nirguna brahman there, the avyakta, that is also unmanifest. So in Sanskritam, vyakta is manifest, avyakta is unmanifest. So unmanifest, one unmanifest is the prakriti, which is also transient. But beyond that unmanifest is another unmanifest avyakta, which is the supreme person, which even though there is creation, dissolution, everything, that unmanifest does not have birth or death. It is sanatana, it is eternal. So what we have to aim at reaching is that supreme being, that Brahman, which anadi anantya avyakta, if I may call it that way, which does not have a beginning, does not have an end. So Bhagavan is differentiating between these two unmanifest concepts in this verse.
In the next verse, the 21, he says, talks about Akshara Brahma, Akshara Purusha. And in chapter 15, he says that, Purushottama is even higher than the Akshara Purusha also. So there are basically Kshara Purusha, Akshara Purusha, and Purushottama. So this Purushottama is considered to be the same as this is the second avyakta, is it?
Sorry, which verse of chapter 16 are you referring to?
21, verse 21 of the same chapter is what we are talking about, Akshara Purusha. Okay. And in chapter 15, we are talking about Purushottama Yoga, where he says that Purushottama is superior to even the Akshara Purusha. So, Asmak Ksharo 18, verse 18 of chapter 15, space Yasmat Ksharo Yasmad Ksharam Atitoham Aksharadabi Chottamaha Atosmi Loke Vedesha Prathita Purushottamaha. So he says clearly that Purushottama is superior to Kshara and as well as Akshara.
Verse 18 of 15 chapter, is it?
15, chapter 15.
So I think what Bhagavan is trying to convey here is that he is completely different from the Kshara Purusha, and he is totally unattached to this world of matter, etc., which is Kshara and Akshara, perishable and imperishable. So by calling himself superior to the imperishable, I think what the Lord is intending to show that he is an immortal and spiritual being, and he is beyond the perishable, beyond Kshara and Akshara, this difference. So I don't know if I answered that question convincingly, Mahodaya, but this is what I think that verse refers to.
Yeah. So it's
but if you have any other view, any other interpretation, please do share.
Rajesh or somebody? Rajesh,
yeah. Thank you. So You know, when I read that in chapter 15, Purushottam Yoga, I was so fascinated because in that chapter, the Lord first talks about his Brahma form, in which form the Lord is present in every atom of the universe. You know, Prameti, Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagwan iti Shabdate. That's what Bhagavatam says. There are three aspects of the same God. In the Brahma form, he is there in every atom of the universe. That is the Char, the imperishable Brahma, which is present in every atom. The same Lord sits in our heart in the Paramatma form. So the Brahma form is worshipped by the Jnani. He worships on the unmanifest form of the Lord. And the yogi worships the Paramatma form of the Lord seated in our heart. You know, which Sri Krishna says in so many verses, Sarvasya Chaham, Hridhi Sannivisto, Matta Smritirgyana Pohanam Cha, so many places, Hrideshe Arjun Tishtati in 18th chapter. And then the Lord, as you mentioned, Aksharamati, Purushottama, Chottama, that verse which you quoted from the 15th chapter, there the Lord says, beyond these two, there is the Bhagwan form. He's talking about the personality of Sri Krishna, which is beyond the Brahma form and the Paramatma form. And chapter 15 talks about this in very, very vivid way. For example, the Lord says, Gama Vishyacha Bhutani Dharyami Aham Ojasa, Pushnami Chausadi Sarva. Then he says, Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva Praninam De Mashita. So these are the forms in which the Lord is present in every atom. Like he says, I become the juice in the fruit, and I am the, Rasoham Apsu Konteya, I am the test in the water. So that Brahma form is present everywhere. In the Paramatma form is seated in the heart. But when he appears as Sri Krishna and Ram and so many other personalities, that is the Bhagwan form he's talking about. So chapter 15 is so amazingly talking about all the three forms of the Lord, like the water, which is the same element, but it has got three forms: ice, vapor, and water. Thank you so much.
Varshaji, or anybody wants to add anything?
Yeah, one more thing we can say that I read somewhere is that what you call the one is compared to the perishable Kshara Prakriti, Kshara Brahma, which is also explained through the what you call the Mula, that word is the tree, Ashrat, the tree in the beginning. And then, like what elaborating what Rajesh said, that you can also say that the Akshara Brahma is something like Savana Brahma, with having all the attributes to develop and Prakriti and everything inside. And then beyond that, Purushottama is Nirguna Brahma. That's what one of the explanations says. So Nirguna Brahma, Brahma has got two aspects, Saguna Brahma and Nirguna Brahma. And so Nirguna Brahma is always beyond the Saguna Brahma. That is one explanation that I read somewhere. I just recollected. Right or wrong, I do not know. Please forgive me.
Yeah, there are very, very many interpretations possible. Yeah, thank you so much, Srinivasji. Sunilji, you want to say anything?
KKG, I have one question.
Yeah, please.
So Brindaji was quoting the example of that housewife. No, she was told her Guruji that there is not sufficient time for all the sadhanas. So in a way that Grihastha is busy with her daily responsibilities, there are also people like who are not able to perform their sadhanas due to maybe health reasons or maybe due to some other reasons. So how about that group of people? What is their way out? Kindly explain.
Should I take that question?
Yeah, for you. You're the speaker.
Okay. Sindhuji, so here, yes, completely agree with you that all of us have different situations in life, whether it is health or other commitments, etc. So I think the best way, the shloka which came to my mind when you asked this is, Bhagavan himself, I think it is the 9th chapter if I'm not wrong, he says, Yat karoshi yadashnasi yajjuhoshi dadasi yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam. So whatever, even whichever state we are in, whether health wise or other commitments, etc., whatever we do, including say sleeping or eating or drinking water, walking, so everything doing it as an arpanam to Bhagavan. And that is exactly what Shankara Bhagavad Padacharya also says in many stotras. So let whatever I utter become japa to Bhagavati. Whatever I do, like even moving my hands, so let that be an offering to Bhagavati. So even if a person is ill, if that person is say consuming any food or even drinking water, sleeping, so thinking that everything is an offering to Bhagavan, then this life itself becomes a yoga. Life itself becomes complete samarpanam to Bhagavan. So I think that way, Bhagavan has never qualified that you should do this, you should do in this way, in that way. Whatever we do, even breathing for that matter, thinking that the breath itself is Bhagavan, that also would be, I think, Bhakti Yoga and Ananya Chintana. So, but if you're referring to, say, people who are not in a state of consciousness at all, maybe they're so ill that they are not conscious. So that exactly that reason why I think from childhood, this is a sadhana, Ananya Chintana, Ananya Bhakti should become a way of life since childhood days. And I think as some of us as parents of young kids, maybe that's our duty to inculcate that in children also, so that whatever stage in life and whatever situation one is in, that inner consciousness and your mind is always devoted to Bhagavan.
I really want to add what Brindaji said earlier. No, beautifully verse she quoted. Yogarato va bhogarato va and yasya brahmadi ramane chittam. Nandati nandati nanditeva. So that is the essence. So when it's not, the issue is not whether you are doing yoga or bhoga or yogarata or bhogarata or whatever it is, but mind should be focused on Brahman. So and then Bhagavan or Krishna, or that is the essence. So after that, anything that you do, like our next talk on IGF is also going to be spiritualizing action, how to spiritualize action. So that is the whole idea.
And Brindaji and Krishnaji, if you allow me to say something which I'm very tempted to share, the shloka number 14 from chapter 8. Ananya cheta satatam yomam asmarti nityashah tasyaham sulabha partha nitya yuktasya yoginaha. I think that is a perfect answer to Sindhuji's question. She's talking about somebody who is so challenged with his health that he's lying in an ICU. His consciousness is intact, but he cannot move his hands, he cannot move his legs. He can remember God. And the Lord is only telling us to do the remembrance. Otherwise, if Lord had put a condition, you have to move your hands or you have to chant, he wouldn't have said, just surrender to me. And he wouldn't have said, tasmat sarveshu kalesu. So remembrance is the highest. And that everyone can do, of course, with the exception of somebody who has become unconscious, is in a comatose state. But brilliant answer by Brindaji. Congratulations. I missed the early talk, but I'll go back and study like I do other speakers. Varshaji's speech I have heard a few times. So this is turning out to be a great portal for learning Bhagavad Gita, Krishnaji.
Thank you so much, Mahodaya. And your answer about Purushottama was so enlightening. Dhanyavadaha. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions by anybody? Otherwise, already 1:30, 1:35. Today we have crossed all limits. We normally end at least by 1:30.
But we got such a priceless knowledge, Krishnaji.
Correct, absolutely. I agree. I fully agree. Yeah, Bhagavad Gita is beyond eating physical food, Thank you so much. And so if there are no other questions, we will terminate the session for today. And we thank our guest of honor for today, Sri Rauji, who spoke beautifully on the Sri Aurobindo's teachings. And our speaker for today, Brindaji, who did a fantastic job. And our wonderful chanters for today, as well as all the audience and everybody else. And we offer everything under the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. And thank you, everybody, and see you next time. Hari Om.
Thank you, Brindaji.